Assalamu alaikum. Today we're going to learn about an exciting topic that surrounds us every day, even if we don't always notice it. And it is the states of matter. The states of matter. And today, by the end of this lesson, you will understand what matter is and the different forms or states it can take. So let's get started. So let's begin by understanding what matter is. So what is matter? Any idea what is matter? Well, matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. Not or. It is not optional. It is that it should have mass and takes up space. Okay, so any example of matter? Any example? Everything around us is made up of matter. So what is around you? It is a matter. The water you drink is a matter. Water you drink, it is also matter. And what else? The air you breathe is also matter. The air you breathe is also matter. So what is matter? It is anything that has mass and takes up space or occupies space. And these are the examples of matter. Okay, so this was about matter. This was all about matter. Now imagine just as each Lego piece, or we have small Lego blocks. So just as each Lego piece is a small part of a larger structure. Small part of a larger structure. We use these blocks to make up whether it is a house or a jungle. So these are the small pieces of that larger structure of, let's say, a house or a jungle or anything you make by these Lego pieces. So just as it, matter is made up of tiny particles which are called atoms. Just as this example, when we join these pieces, we form a large structure. So matter is also made up of tiny particles called atom. Matter is also made up of tiny particles called atom. So these atoms come together to form everything, anything we see, we touch, and we experience. So let's revise. What is matter? Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space or occupies space. And for example, we wrote some examples: desk, water, right? Desk, water, the air you breathe. And then we learned that these small tiny particles called atoms make up the matter. So matter is made up of tiny particles called atom. And how is matter made? These tiny atoms come together to form everything. And what is that everything? Matter. And what is a matter? A matter is anything that has mass or takes up space. So what is a matter? Matter is defined as everything that has mass and occupies space. So let's move on. Now that we know that what matter is, let's talk about states. Let's talk about states. Okay. So when we refer to states of matter, We are talking about the different forms. We are talking about the different forms matter can take. Different forms matter can take. Okay. So we have three primary states: solid, liquid, and gas. Solid, liquid, and gas. So these appearances are called states. And what are these three primary states? These are solid, liquid, and gas. So this means that matter has three different forms: solid, liquid, and gas. So now let's learn about all these three states of matter. Okay, so here we have solid. And what is a solid? It is relatively rigid with a definite volume and shape. And in a solid state, the atoms and molecules are attached to each other. What are atoms? We learned that matter is made up of tiny particles called atoms. So atoms are the tiny particles that make up matter. How? They come together to form everything. Okay, so now let's learn about solid in detail. So let's learn about what are the properties of solid. Okay, so number one, definite shape and volume. What is the meaning of definite shape and volume? Definite shape and volume means that solids have a shape that doesn't change unless you apply force to them. Definite shape and volume means that solids have a shape that doesn't change unless you apply force to them. Unless you apply force. Okay, so now let's have an example. For example, you have a rock. You have a, for example, you have a rock and this is the rock. Okay, so rock is a solid? Yes. So rock will stay rock shaped unless you break it. Will rock change its shape? Yes, it will change its shape when you will apply force to it. How can you apply force to it? By breaking it down, by throwing it down. You are applying force to it. So the first property of solid is that it has definite shape and volume. This means that the the shape and volume the shape will be the same unless you apply force to it. You apply force to it, to the solid that you have. Okay. So what is the second one? Second one is that particles are compact. What is the meaning of particles are compact? We learned that in solids, particles are packed closely together. Particles are closely packed together, which makes them firm, which makes them dense. And this tight arrangement gives solids their structure. So particles are compact means they're tightly packed together. Tightly packed. This means the atoms in the solids are closely, very closely packed together. That they don't have space to move. Even they don't have space to move. So let me draw an example of it. So these are the atoms in solid. And this is the arrangement of atoms in solid. Don't have space even to move. They cannot move and change their direction. So this is how particles in solids pack together. This is the arrangement of particles. Arrangement of atoms In liquid? No, in solid. That they are unable to move and they even cannot change their direction or cannot change their place. So this means that particles are tightly packed together, atoms are closely packed together, and this is the arrangement of atoms in solid. And because they're tightly packed, they are more dense and firm. The arrangement of atoms makes them dense and firm. Okay, so the third one, it is hard to compress. What is the meaning of hard to compress? This means that solids can't be squished easily because their particles are already packed closely. This is how their particles are packed. So let's have an example of rock. Can we squish a rock by our hand? No, this is unable to. This is not possible that we can squish it. We can compress it from by our hand. So solids can't be squished easily because their particles are already packed closely. Okay, so now at fourth we have they does not conform to the shape of the container. What is the meaning of this property? What is meant by does not conform to the shape of the container? This means, in simple words, if we have a container, any container. So this is a glass, okay? And when we place this rock in glass is a container, right? What is a container that contains something? So glass is a container. So if we place this rock inside the glass, will it change and take the shape of the glass? It's obvious no. Okay, do you have a glass near you? Okay, then try to put an eraser or sharpener in it. Any bottle or glass. And what? Can it take the shape of your bottle, your glass, your container? No, it will be the same. So this means that solids does not conform to the shape of the container. They do not take the shape of the container. Okay, so then lastly it is fifth one, which is high density. What is meant by high density? For this, let's just learn about density first. Density is a measure of how much mass is contained in a given volume. How much mass is contained in a volume. Okay. For example, let's have an example. Imagine you have a jar. You have two jars. Okay. These are two jars. Let's say this is jar A and this is jar B. Okay. And you place some marbles in jar A. And in jar B, you place some feathers. You place some feathers. Okay. So let's measure. Will, okay, now I have a question. Which jar will be the heavier? Which jar will be the heavier one? A or B? A or B? Yes, jar A. Why? Why jar A? Because the marbles are tightly packed, which makes the jar heavier, right? Marbles are tightly packed. What is, okay, if marbles are tightly packed, are they solid? Yes. And however, feather are lighter than marbles, right? If you have a feather, place one feather in your hand and one marble in your hand. The marble will be marble will be heavier than the feather. So this means that the marbles are tightly packed, making the jar heavier and denser, which means that they have high density. And what is density? Density is how much mass is contained in a volume. It is a measure of how much mass is contained in a volume. Now, the last property of solid was that it has high density. Why? Because the atoms are tightly packed together, which makes them heavier. So let's move on. So now let's write some examples of solid. Now you have to tell me some examples of solid. Look around you. Are there any solids around you? Bag, your school bag, or any bag. It is a solid. Cup, and what else? Jar, jug, bottle, your toys, your toy car or your car. And what else? Pen, pencil, your board, your class board or your small board. And what else? There are many examples of solids. So this was all about solid, and now we are going to learn about liquids. So what is a liquid? What is a liquid? So liquid is indefinite volume but able to change shape. How? By flowing. So this is the first difference in solid and liquid. Were solid able to change their shape? Were they able to have the shape of their container? No. But liquids are able to change shape by flowing. In a liquid form, the atoms and molecules are loosely bonded. Okay, so here is another difference between solids and liquids. That in liquid, atoms are loosely bonded, but in solids, they were tightly packed. So let's learn about the properties of liquid. So here are some properties of liquid. First one. First one is that they have no definite shape. What is meant by they have no definite shape? This means that liquids take the shape of their container they are in, of the container they are in. Give me an example. Okay, so here, let's say this is a cup and you pour some juice into it or water into it. Once you have poured it, it will be poured in the jug, right? In the mug or whatever the container is. It will take the shape of the container. It will take the shape of the container. It will not be, okay, just pour some water into a glass. Will the water be in which shape will be the water? In circle, in square, in cube? It will take the shape of the container. Okay, so let's pour the water into some circle shaped container. Then it will be it will be in circle shaped. If in glass, it will be the shape of the glass. So this means that liquid has no definite shape. They take up the shape, they take the shape of the container they are in. They take the shape of the container they are in. Okay, so second one. Particles are less compact and not neatly organized. What is meant by particles are less compact and not neatly organized? This means that in liquids, particles are close together. They are close together, but they can slide past each other, allowing the liquid to flow. In solids, particles were tightly packed together and they were not able to slide past each other or even move. But in liquid, particles are less compact than solids and they can move, they can slide past each other. So this is let's make a diagram, the arrangement of atoms in liquid. So this is the arrangement of particles in liquid. They are closely together, packed together, but they have enough space to slide past each other. They have enough space to slide past each other. Okay. So now this third one has a definite volume. Okay, so liquids have a definite volume. What is meant by definite volume? Liquids have a specific amount of space they occupy, so the volume stays the same even if the shapes change. Even if you're pouring some water in this jug, in this glass or a cup, the volume, the volume will be the same, even if the shape changes. Even you pour some liquid into the circle-shaped container, the volume will be the same. So this means that they have a definite volume. So fourth one is low density relative to solids. Low density relative to solids. How? Liquids are less dense than solids. Why? Now you tell me why liquids are less dense than solids. Why solids were why solids were denser than liquids? We learned that solids are denser because they are tightly packed together. So why liquids are less dense than solids? Because they are loosely packed together. They have enough space. The atoms in liquid have enough space to slide past each other. So this means that liquids are less dense than solids. Okay. It flows. It means that if liquids can move and pour easily. For example, like when you pour milk into your ball, when you pour liquid into your cereal ball or any ball, if you pour some milk into your ball, it flows. So this means liquid flows. Even if you pour water into a cup, it flows. So let's move on. Now give me some examples of liquid. What are the examples of liquid? Well done. Water, then juice, then what else? Milk. So there are many examples of liquid around you. Many examples. So let's move on and learn about gases. Gas has no definite volume or shape. Wow, gas has no definite volume and they don't have definite shape. Okay, so now let's learn about some properties of gases. So here are some properties of gases. So first one, what is the first one? Indefinite shape and volume. So it is the opposite of solid. They had definite shape and volume. Gases have indefinite shape and volume. What is meant by indefinite shape and volume? That gases spread out to fill the shape and volume of their container. For example, if you blow up a balloon, the gas inside takes the shape of the balloon. So this means that they have indefinite shape and they have indefinite volume. How? By this gases spread out. They spread out to fill the shape and volume of their container. To fill the shape and volume of the shape of their container. Okay. Secondly, highly compressible. What is meant by highly compressible? Again, the opposite of solids. That gases can be squished into smaller spaces because their particles are far apart. And this is why, here is an example. This is why, let's say this is a tire. This is a tire. So only because of this, because gases can be squished into smaller pieces, Why? Because their particles are far apart. This is why you can compress air into a tire. You can compress air into tire. So what is meant by highly compressible? This means that gases can be easily squished into smaller spaces. Why? Because their particles are far apart. They are far apart. They move freely around everywhere. Okay, so third one is the thing we were talking about. Particles are far apart in gases. What is meant by particles are far apart? This means that in gases, particles are spread out and move freely, allowing them to expand. So here is the arrangement of particles of gases. They move like this. They're freely to move. They can move everywhere, anywhere. So they're spread out and move freely, allowing them to expand. So the fourth one, this is the fourth one, conforms to the shape of the container. Conforms to the shape of the container. So what is meant by conforms to the shape of the container? This means that gases fill whatever container they are in. And there is an easy example of it. Guess. Yes, like air in your room. Like air in your room. It takes up the shape of the container. Container is the room and the air is taking up the space, taking up the shape of it. That's the air you breathe, right? So gases take fill whatever container they are in. Gases fill whatever container they are in. Okay, so the last one, fifth one, low density. Low density. Why low density? Now, why low density? Because their particles are spread out. Because their particles are spread out, which makes them lighter. Because their particles are spread out. So, what was the common thing in all of these states? Can you guess? How can we guess the properties of these all states? Only by the arrangement of their particles, of the atoms. So, these were the three states of matter. Now, let's write some examples of gases. Now, give me the example of any gas. Oxygen. You take in oxygen and what you release is carbon dioxide. And what else? You have helium. It is a gas. You can find it in balloons. Then what else? Nitrogen gas. There are many gases. Many gases. Even in your air, the air you breathe, there are many gases mixed up in the air. However, we cannot see them. So now that we have learned about the three main states of matter, let's do a quick activity to reinforce what we have learned. Let's do a quick activity to reinforce what we have learned. Okay, I will name an object and you will tell me whether it's a solid, liquid, or gas. Ready? Okay. First one is ice cube. Is it a solid, liquid, or gas? Solid. Okay, second one is milk. Is it a solid, liquid, or gas? Liquid. And then we have jelly. Yes. Now tell me, is it a solid, liquid, or gas? Solid. Then we have soup. The soup you have. Well done, liquid. And lastly, we have air. Is it a solid, liquid, or gas? Gas. So today we have learned about the world of matter and its states. Remember, matter is anything that has mass and occupies space. And the three primary states of matter are solids, liquids, and gases. And each state has unique properties based on how its particles are arranged and move. So, keep an eye out for different states of matter in your daily life, whether it's the solid ground you walk on, the liquid water you drink, or the gas you breathe in. Matter is all around us. Jazakallah khair.